the topic of how should the business education look like. So honestly speaking, we'd like our speakers to share their experience first of all, but also we'd like to get to know something for us, some skills to take which we can use later on, because we do understand, so if the business is being developing, everything will be cool in the state, we'll have money, we'll be rich. So please come closer, I'll introduce my guests. That's the only woman in our team, Almagul Kanagatova, first Vice Rector of Almaty Management University. I'm glad to hear you here, Miss Almagul. Yes, a round of applause for you. We'll get to know what's the most important business sphere for the women now. Boaz Golany, Vice President for External Relations and Resource Development at the Technion University. Israeli nation of startups is being born in Technion, so a round of applause for Mr. Boaz. Nicolas Sadirac, who is close to me over here. He is a co-founder of the French School 42, which doesn't have teachers, doesn't have lectures, doesn't have notebooks. I can't imagine how they study there, but somehow they do. So I greet you here, Mr. Nicolas. Mr. Vladimir Spivakovsky, the founder of the first in the USSR Business School, the president of the International Cooperation Grant, the author of the 7 bestsellers of Educational Boom, and if you want to be happy and rich, don't go to school. So nice to meet you here too. And also we're having Ilja Laurs here, chairman of the venture capital fund Nextury Ventures, the founder of one of the biggest in the world internet shops of the applications forger. So glad to see you here, Mr. Ilja. So the first question I'll ask you, well, it's asked very often for everyone, but still, I'd like to get to know about that still, especially if you never dealt with business. So the only thing I'll speak Russian, because 2 of our guests understand Russian, so it would be improper if they would have simultaneous interpretation into English. So if you don't mind, I'll speak Russian. The first question, dear participants, it's considered that not everyone can become an entrepreneur because there should be talent for that. So if the education is the proper one, a good one, can we develop the talent? This is the first question, which is for everyone. Please be short, but try to make it argument. Nicola, can you develop the talent of an entrepreneur in you?
That's a quite difficult question. I would think most of people would have talent to be entrepreneurs if we take it at the proper time. If you take it quite early, it'd be quite natural. The process of standard education would kind of reduce this, and we can, most of situation, kind of restore this. The main idea, I think, it's something that we can't really teach in the meaning of teaching, but it can be done by action. Okay, so mainly what we do in 42, we can try to make students try to meet entrepreneurs and do stuff together, or even to be active in entrepreneurs' activities all together. I think entrepreneurship is something like could be contagious more than something that can be learned.
Хорошо, но у вас действительно, вы расскажете о том, у вас действительно...
Okay, yes, really, you don't have any teachers, as I mentioned already, you don't have lectures, you don't have notebooks, you will tell how it happens, but still, Vladimir, what do you think? Can you develop the talent of entrepreneurship or just improve the talent of entrepreneurship if it has? Yes, I'm doing that for 30 years, and of course I consider it can be done, because according to the nature as an entrepreneurship, approximately 3% of the population, they have such skills and some to become entrepreneurs, but special educations during the school time and even in the adult life, from the age of 15 to 25 years old, it increases the chances. Then there is maybe not 3% but 20%. Well, not 100%, but you can give the chance to everyone. You need to put the person in the business environment. If he or she is not in the business environment, nothing will work. You don't have an opportunity to operate that. But if he is in the business environment where you can communicate, where you can organize the projects, where you can sell and buy, in this business environment you can have this proportion of 20%. Ilja, what do you think? Why I'm asking you? Because you taught in Stanford, you read lectures in Stanford, and it's considered to be a very powerful business school. Well, Stanford is the source of all of the entrepreneurs, so yes, I would say that I totally agree. I would say that entrepreneurship even now is more a profession than art. I would say that there are some common principles, and entrepreneurship can be studied and implemented like any other profession. 3% or 20%, well, we can argue about that. I would say 40 to 60% have such skills. And I'd like to emphasize that the paradigm of the entrepreneurship, of the creating of business, has changed substantially for the latest 50 years. So if we take the 100 years, we have the psychotype of the leader Rockefeller, the talent, the genius who leads the people. But if we look at the latest entrepreneurs, with all due respect of Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, they are not Napoleons at all. So the environment is so helpful for different innovations, because we have only two parameters which define whether the person is entrepreneur or not. Some of the main, I'm not even speaking of some of the super skills, but main skills of entrepreneurship: how to create a company, how to attract capital, what's important, what's not, how to make the activities acute to increase the value of the capital. This is the basic course of 20 lectures, and it covers totally. And the second one is much more important: the ability and the wish to take the risks. Yes, to take the responsibility, right. You've got 10 rights in the business, we'll speak about that later on. And Mr. Boaz, what do you say? Can you become an entrepreneur? Because you have the nation of startup, which was born in Technion. What do you say about that?
To argue with my colleague here. I think I heard him. You see, I'm using this headset because I'm one of the few here that doesn't speak Ukrainian or Russian. So I think I heard that you mentioned that Stanford is like the home for all or most of the entrepreneurs. So just to give you an idea, the Technion competed together with Cornell University against Stanford in a competition to establish a new university in New York. And the competition took place in 2012, and the essence for the competition was who will bring to New York more entrepreneurship. And it was such a sweet deal for us to blow Stanford straight in the nose and win the competition. So those that are interested are invited to listen to me tomorrow. I'll speak about it tomorrow. But now, going to the question. Perhaps I'll start with just a couple of statistics about the Technion. We are Israel's oldest university. We were established in 1912 and actually started teaching after World War I in 1924. So on one hand, we are very old. On the other hand, we are considered not only at home but worldwide as one of the leading universities of innovation and entrepreneurship. And here are the two statistics. Israel as a country has more than 100 companies listed on NASDAQ. We are number...
понимаете, господин Boaz, тут...
Well, you do understand, Mr. Boaz, we need to understand whether we can bring up. You will tell about that, which conditions you created for the people to develop, right? Studying. But can you study a person to become an entrepreneur? If Vladimir says only 3% of the people can deal with business, can do business, if the education is good enough, can you study how to do that? Can you teach?
I like to argue with everybody, so I'll argue with Vladimir as well, because I don't accept any percentage. I think it depends on the society, it depends on the psyche of the people, and you can't really compare one environment to the other, because every country, every society has its legacy, has its tradition, etc. When you look at what's happening in Israel today, it's really part of the legacy of the Jewish people. It didn't start with Israel in 1948. It started many, many years ago. The value of education, the motivation to do more because you are restricted, etc., etc. So these are things that we have inherited from our forefathers. And even though I have many students in my university that would like to be the next Steve Jobs or the next Michael Dell or the next Mark Zuckerberg, etc., we think that there is a way to improve their ability to become entrepreneurs.
Хорошо, тогда мы как раз об этом...
Okay, we'll speak about that. Our discussion will be about that. We can develop this topic. So, Almagul, how do you think? I think that today entrepreneurship is not a fashionable accessory. This notion is really a noble one, so lots of young people are just dreaming to become entrepreneurs. They do understand that they need to get the necessary competence because the whole world changed. Because every person needs to have an opportunity, and each young person wants to get those opportunities and to use them in a proper way. Okay, then we'll go this way. We know that in Ukraine we're having lots of reforms going on. We have lots of problems going on. So there is the question I'm asking now. What should we teach? We and you, the presentees, what should we study to get the business education to work in the conditions which Ukraine now has? To some extent, we don't have the property rights defense, corruptions, and the taxation legislation is being changing all the time, and the risks Ilja mentioned. All those we need to take responsibility. So what should we study and what can we teach? Maybe you can give some of the exact examples to have an opportunity to work in those conditions. Ilja, what do you say? Look, there are 2 points. There is the precise entrepreneur and there is the environment where he lives. Lots of things depend on the environment. If I'm a student and wrote a thesis and invested thousands of my hours and all of the rights are owned by the university, all of the rest doesn't matter at all. That's it. The environment is not friendly, and whether we try to study or to teach, there's no sense to do that. And the second point is the entrepreneur himself. As I've mentioned, this is not the quantum physics. There is the basic course of knowledge, how to invent a bicycle according to the model of Israel or Silicon Valley. Things got the whole scheme of construction of the company, even 100 billion as Facebook is, knowing just an idea is described and it's well known. There are lots of sources and it's not the quantum physics, so it proved its efficiency in lots of regions. So we just need to get to know how to do that. Okay, still, now we discuss the question. We always considered that you need to be the leader in the business. There are lots of books written about that. I even found the book, How to Become the Leader Among Your Friends. How to Become the Leader Among Your Friends. It's something overwhelming, it's contradicting. How can you be a leader among the friends? So, even now, preparing for today's discussion and reading different information, I understood that now we need skills of the teamwork. Well, because the business will be led by the leader, the most important, the bravest, the one who will take responsibility. So, do you need to become the leader today or the team worker? Vladimir? Well, it depends on your luck. Sometimes you deal with the leadership, I'm on my own, I like it, and I wouldn't like to share my business with anyone. This is my idea. But some people are working in the teams with the partners, and it's okay too, about the joint ventures. As for the environment where the business has to work in, you know, the business is looking like the work of the far distant captain. This captain, he is flying through the storms, he's attacked by sharks. This deep sea master has the lack of the of some food, but I've never heard that the captain could give the message, please help me, give me the proper conditions. So this hard conditions is this natural field, this space where the entrepreneurship has to exist. This is life, c'est la vie. Okay, but if the taxation code can be changed all the time, we're having this rate of taxes and we still need tax reforms. Oh, it can be changed as much as it wants. I was living during the times, I don't know how many of you lived during the Soviet times, and in Yerevan, in Armenia, in Georgia, there were people who produced shoes, clothes which were illegal and so on, because the spirit of entrepreneurship, you can't take it out of a person. This is the 3% of the people who are living with it, just on the contrary to the space where they live. Of course, it would be very nice, we would have some very nice conditions and warm conditions, but all those stock exchanges and demands and all those notions, entrepreneurship is a risky idea. So that's why We need to study. You need to get used that we will be in this field. There are no laws enough, no demand, you have the no improper employees, no technologies, but you need to act. But won't this enterprise be ruined after that? This is the art. This is the art 3% have. This is the topic of our discussion. We'll get to know how to study. Is this your model? Oh, it's a separate story. Okay. So how can we define what we should do? What will be good? Almagul, you teaching your students, what do you do? You're preparing the people who will create the enterprise which will sew clothes or to do agriculture. Preparing the business education. You need to understand what they do in the future. Or maybe like this. Here is the leadership, this is something else, and after the university, a person is graduating and doesn't know what to do. Well, first of all, we're speaking about the eco-environment, the proper entrepreneurship culture. There should be an image, the way of thinking of the entrepreneur. So today, just several years ago, we had our curriculum for all of the specialties, the courses of entrepreneurship. It doesn't say that the courses of entrepreneurship and opening the proper company and so on. Since the first year, we study design thinking and critical thinking. There is the subject of service of to the society. Because they do need to understand that the future entrepreneur must have the heart. They need to go and work with disabled people, with elderly people, because this attitude towards the society, if they have the proper values and philosophy, then tomorrow they will have the proper entrepreneurs thinking and attitude towards life. So entrepreneurship is the service, is the allegiance when there are two sides of a person. If there is a certain value, this person has to be involved into the society, then the win-win-win principle will be working properly. So the eco-environment, the teachers with innovative thinking, and that is why, and again I emphasize, today in our work entrepreneurship is what's really necessary and which makes people be in the trend, in the drive to know how to fall and to rise after that. Yes, Almagul, we know that business is a very harsh environment. Win-win-win is your slogan of your university. When two people are working and it's profitable for bilaterally, but the society should win. So we're speaking, for instance, if you produce milk and you're not just giving some of the milk with water, but the real one, the sausages with meat, not without meat. But still, this environment is harsh. Is it possible to bring up such entrepreneurs who will think about the society? Well, yes, of course. Or it's just a trend, it's just a fashion. Yes, they're working in the project groups when they're trying to understand each other. So, of course, they work on the attitude towards life. If this is a proper attitude towards your life, then the person will be able to survive. Are there any examples when you had graduates and you know that they are working? Yes, we've got lots of examples. Let me name one of the examples. It was Mr. Yusupov. You can find this surname in Google. And this is the graduate of our university who today says that our university gave everything to him. He got the maximum he could. The skills, the wife? Yes, the wife. The primary capital. So we know that when it's hard for us, we're saying him, please tell us. He's having a lecture and saying, yes, I'm ready to say. Because if the person wants to do that, he will achieve that. If the person doesn't want to, he won't achieve anything. There's no sense to speak about anything. There should be the whole ecosystem. There should be the proper teaching when the teachers are not just reading and giving presentations, when the teachers are really practitioners, when they are giving innovative methodologies, knowing that this is the design thinking, this is the new remarketing, this is the whole infrastructure, this is the surrounding, everything influences. Boaz, would you please tell us? This is the president of Technion, right? And said that Israel, nation of startup, was born in Technion. What do you do for it to happen and to go on? Maybe which conditions, nice conditions, are made in Technion? Maybe you created some of the nice hothouse conditions, terrific environments. And what do your students produce? Some examples.
I will start by referring to the conditions that you described here in Ukraine. You started this round of questions by describing how difficult the situation here is, property tax law and taxes and whatever. Believe me that the situation in Israel has been much, much more difficult. And nevertheless, you don't let the environmental conditions affect you. That's our motto. And I think you can succeed here in the Ukraine, even with all the difficulties that you have. It shouldn't deter you at all. Now, back to your question. When Israel was established in 1948, we were a very poor country. The economy was based largely on agricultural products. In the first 20 years, from 48 to the mid-60s, this was a third world country. Then something happened in the mid-60s, and this something is actually the creation of a center for microelectronics in the Faculty of Electrical Engineering at the Technion. The professors of that era, it wasn't a decision from the top, it came from the bottom. The professors of electrical engineering decided to put away the traditional topic that was taught and researched in the universities of strong current, how you produce electricity, transmit it over the wires, and distribute it, put it aside, and focus all the energy they had on the emerging area of transistors and microelectronics. This was the mid-60s, about 65. The graduates of this institute were the pioneers that built the first Israeli technology companies in Israel, companies like Elbit, Elron, and others. And even more importantly, they were the pioneers who brought to Israel the first multinationals of technology, IBM, Motorola, and Intel. All three of them came in the early 1970s. IBM established its very first IBM research laboratory in the Technion campus in 1972.
Ну а сегодня, смотрите, Boaz.
But today, Boaz, what do you do today? Because yes, the history is really very interesting and it's interesting to follow. But today, what we could use as your experience, what we could study, because we know that even you had the Minister of Space of Japan, and he said that they tried to know high technologies from you. What do you do today then?
Well, if I share all the secrets with you, you will compete with me.
Нет, нет, мы хотим именно секреты, нам интересно.
No, we're interested in secrets, right? You do understand how important it is for us to be, but of course we don't have enough of resources and money for innovations.
My message is very simple. It's not a decision made by the top echelon, the government, or even myself, the senior management of the university. The idea is to let the initiatives come from below and encourage people to think out of the box and come up with all kinds of ideas and then give them the opportunity to start. Most of these will fail, but you will be able to ride on the wave, so to speak, of the most successful initiatives. The example I gave of the microelectronics, this was not the only initiative of that time. There were other initiatives that failed. The management of the university allowed this initiative to start even though we didn't have many resources, and when they identified that this is successful, then they promoted it. So this can be done at all levels. It can be done at the government level, at the university level. It can be done at corporations. We keep on talking here today about entrepreneurship. I should say that there is another term called intrapreneurship, which is how you innovate within an existing established company. Not all the businesses are new. You have some good businesses that are up and running. What do you do, for example, in the banking industry here? The banks of tomorrow are not going to be the banks that we have today. if you banks will continue to operate the way they've been operating in the last 10, 20 years, they will disappear. They will be like dinosaurs. A bank that cannot innovate from within will disappear. The same is true for many other businesses. So you young people should also look at ways to innovate within the companies. You mentioned the Japanese. We have very close...
То есть нужно уметь...
So we need to look forward in the future and to see how it should change. Nicolas, so you created the School 42. I will tell you what's the name of 42. This is an IT school. According to the principle of School 42 in Ukraine, there was created unit factory. So, in fact, the president of KIEF is Vasily Khmelnytsky, who founded this school, and when it was issued, it's been working according to the principle of 42 school, IT school. You had the video reel for the Ukrainians, and you said that the demand for the IT guys will be increasing, but not for all of the IT guys, but for innovative, creative IT guys, and those who can work as a team. You consider that the traditional system of education can't prepare such stuff, so you created 42. And 42, if you watched the Hitchhiker to Galaxy, when, for instance, there was the question from this movie, what's the main question of life and the universe and all the rest? The computer was thinking for a long time how to answer this deepest question and said 42. So this is how you found the name for your school, right? So which IT guys will be needed? How do you calculate what those people should know what to do? This is the first question. And the second one, how do they study without the teachers?
Thank you. So the first question was to how do we find what our students should know? Okay, so we don't. So mainly we don't try to figure out what's going on because I run many business in IT, and we launched 42 for a very good reason. We didn't find the people who were able to solve our problem. Okay?
То есть вам не хватало людей для бизнеса.
So you had the lack of the people for your business, right?
Yeah, mainly I will tell you a story of how it starts. Okay, that's a very funny story because it helps a lot to understand what is 42. So just before 42, I ran another school, which is called Epitech, which is a private school, quite expensive. It's the most expensive IT school in France right now, and it's a school very, very successful. And we launched a program to help poor people, so people who were in poor area and who quit school early, like before high school graduation, like around 15. We launched this program. It works wonderfully, and it was great. And all those kids find jobs, so it was fine. One girl of this program ended up in the Xavier Niel company. I mean, most of people in Ukraine don't know Xavier Niel, but it's a little bit like Mr. Kamatsky. It's someone who is the 10th richest guy in France. He get rich from nowhere. I mean, he has no background, rich family. I know him for 30 years right now, and I know him without being able to eat every day. Okay, and we were both doing IT companies at this time. And now he owns the third French French telecom operator, okay, which is one of the highest equity in France. Whatever. So this girl who quit school at 15, okay, ended up in his company. Okay, she was working for him, and after 1 year, she was part of the strategic team of the company. Okay, so she was just great and seen by everyone as a talent. And one day, Mr. Niel asked her, "Where do you come from?" And she answered him, "I was selling pets 2 years ago." She was selling as a seller in a pet shop. Okay, so Xavier called me and said, "Nicolas, what's going on in this country? That's quite strange for me. Everyone is looking for talents. I do look for talents from everywhere. I have teams, even in Israel, we have teams, people looking for talents in Israel and whatever. And I don't find any. It's very difficult to find and whatever. It's a very big international competition. And I had this girl in front of me who is just amazing, and she was selling pets. So what's going on why it doesn't work.
Но посмотрите, вот я все равно...
Look, I'm still trying to imagine how they try to study your students. They are coming, are you giving some tasks to them and they try to solve those tasks? But someone has to facilitate them. You have to begin with this software or with this one. How does it happen? Well, please explain. I don't understand.
Really, there is really no teacher. I mean, no teachers. I mean, no one teaching. There is no mentors. There is no one to care to those people. Okay, mainly it happens very simple. The first day they come in 42 in Paris. It's wide open. There is door. No one to receive students. Only computers where there is somewhere to click. You click on it and there is a video explaining how to use the computer. Then you get an assignment to do something to do. Okay? And we mainly say to students, when you don't know how to do something, you ask to your right neighbor, then you ask to your left neighbor, then you ask to Google.
А если никто не знает?
And if nobody knows, and Google doesn't know?
If you find the solution, you'll be the richest people in the world. That's very simple. There is actually no issue to access to knowledge. I mean, it's not the fact to know something which create new stuff, it's the fact to be able to all together find new solution. So we believe in many stuff. First, the first thing I say to my students when they arrive, okay, we have, after they go the selection part, we have a part where we explain how the school works. I say to students, learning is unuseful, dangerous, and make you dumb. Okay, so we believe that today the relationship between knowledge and human has deeply changed because we would say most of the knowledge can be held by computers and will be more and more, and it will change the way of all kind of human activity.
Но вот смотрите, это можно использовать в других сферах.
But can it be used in some different spheres? For instance, in business learning. If we teach economists, for instance, still we need some lectures, right? It could be used only in IT technologies, only peer-to-peer, right? And that's it.
I don't think so.
Да?
I really think in economy right now you have people who transmit knowledge because I would say it's an obsolete way of doing it. We can access knowledge much more efficiently than through a teacher speaking about us.
Так скажите, в каких...
So please, which spheres can use this type of teaching? What could be the spheres?
No, I think any field can use it.
What?
Any field can
Any
use
field.
it.
Any field. Везде?
For example, we are working right now with French school which is called HEC, which is the best business school in France and ranked into 3 or 4 best in Europe. And we develop programs for teaching entrepreneurships or leaderships, doing that way. Mainly because it's the main idea. We were speaking about entrepreneurships, but we are not speaking about teaching entrepreneurship right now. We speak about how to optimize entrepreneurs to be efficient. I think we can develop entrepreneurship skills very early by making people makers. I mean, make people emperor of what they want. If you make a kid, very young kid, active in what they do, they will be at the end entrepreneur. They will be either create company or be entrepreneur inside company or create some kind of activity where they are something in action. That's the way we do it mainly.
Thank you. Спасибо. Илья, как...
Ilja, how do we find funding for the projects? How do we understand what to do? How did you create one of the biggest internet shops of the mobile apps and you've sold it for 50 million, right? $50 million. Well, I won't comment on the sums of money. Well, it's been written like that. I won't comment on that, no. So still, how can we understand what to do? Well, of course, we understand someone is an IT guy, someone can deal with investments, someone creates enterprises to sew clothes, but still, how can we understand what's needed at the market? This is the first one. And secondly, how to find money and to find investors. Because among the 10 rules of business, you can find the rules of business online by Ilja Laurs, you're writing the second rule is communication, the skills to communicate. So how can you reconvince a person, because you understand he's rich, he has a status and authority, so how can you overcome the psychological obstacles and barrier to communicate with this person, for this person to give you money and for you to be able to develop your enterprise? So how can we choose what to do and how can we find money for that? Oh, there are too many questions. I'll try to answer one by one. So the first comment, we need to understand precisely that the entrepreneurship, the startup, is only a tool. And not the form and not the content. This is what you want to do, to bake or to build something. This is the content. The form which gets the content is the toolkit. It's the mini framework. This is the first thing. Secondly, the creation of the company, knowing the interest to finance it, to fund it. Though about 80% of startup create themselves only to fund it, so their aim is to get money. Only 80%, not even less, both in the Valley and in Lithuania. We need to understand that we need to create a product first of all. We can't, and it's ruining for everything if you create something just hoping to finance it, and that's it. Because the whole product is suffering, and of course the investors are not that naive. They can see when the person is excited by the product, or he just wants to use some money for that. And the third, there is no quantum physics again in the theory how to find funding. This is already a very well repaired ecosystem. There are lots of layers. There is angel financing and family financing, the tool which is working in America but not working in Lithuania. Well, okay, if there are money in family, but if there are no money, and well, friends family it's a very serious toolkit for the financing. When you need some money, mini money for about 10 to 30,000, and this tool is very efficient both in Israel and the UK and the US, because again, our territory, I mean our region, doesn't have such a start capital. This tool is not affordable. There are lots of accelerators, incubators. I'm giving the keywords, so if you just Google the 5 main words, you'll find lots of recipes. So I'd like to say that this ecosystem is already working. If there is some value of what you're creating, the money will be funded 100%. There are much more people than the people with the proper motivation and the risks they are ready to take to use this money. But still, where should we go? I'd like, for instance, to create an enterprise, I don't know, well, to sew clothes. Where should I go? Which incubator? Well, and again, I didn't analyze Ukraine. Okay, we'll ask Vladimir about that. Yes, this is a typical example. In Lithuania, it's already been doing lots of local accelerators and incubators, and I'm not looking at Lithuania as a country because it's a EU, it's one territory. There are lots of Lithuanians who come into Scandinavia, to Berlin, to Poland, to the Netherlands. There is a simple example. 3 people, the idea, half a year, some prototype incubator, which allows to fund from 50 to 100,000 euro, and it can be about 300, 400. So for 3 or 4 months, 3 persons team can get this money. If everything is very successful, the product will get to the market, and the money will be much more substantial, up to 1 million. Okay, then we'll need to ask Vladimir about the funding, but still, how can we convince psychological gap? How can we overcome the psychological barrier? Because we have this trace of Soviet past. I do understand that people who are 30 plus now, but if you're 25, they don't feel it, and still. They being brought up by the parents, by the school, which still have this Soviet trace. And very often the psychological barrier, people don't know how to lead the negotiations, how to persuade another people. Could you give an advice? Because I'm sure you've used to convince. Yes, I'll give you 2 points. First of all, you need to separate which investor, institutional one or the private investor you're trying to seek money from. The private one is the angel investor. You must have personal contacts. Those psychological moments are acting, and it's on the level of not all of the worries because he's cool, but the skills to communicate as it is. You can formulate your thoughts, and it's already enough in the beginning. The angel wouldn't communicate with you if he didn't have any interest in funding or investing. You don't just ask, you get something too. But still, the majority of funding, both in America and Europe, are institutional institutionalized. Those money are coming from the institution, not from the individuals. There could be accelerators, incubators, and so on. Then there is not a single one person whom you're asking from. It's on the level of a very formal communication with the institution, filling in the forms, presenting the project. Those are like grants. Yes, kind of grants, exactly. And some worries, they just don't care. You shouldn't be worried, because this is the part of the process. So, some of them are totally automatized. Because, for instance, this summer, one of the most important incubators and accelerators in the valley came 100% algorithm distribution of money. So the applications, there are some of the decisions taken by the computer only. Oh my God, it's very difficult to imagine. Vladimir, how does it exist in our conditions? It's very easy. Yes, sure, very easy. Look, the first people in the ranking of the richest people in the world, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Ortega, they didn't have the systematic business education. And they're rich. So I do agree with Ilja. The most important thing was they created some product or the service which was needed. Zuckerberg thought of some, not even the network, but the way to exchange old textbooks in the university. And it turned out that it's needed. The same happened with personal computers. With a comparison of the previous last paradigm that the computers will be huge like IBM, you remember that, but they turned out to be personal later on, so it's important to find what will be bought later on. The same the fashion designers do. Pierre Cardin doesn't study the market, he just guesses how the clothes should look like and how it will be worn. If it's worn, of course, he will have money. Money is secondary. At first to give the product, the service, and then the money is involved and they're coming and streaming on their own. But that's what you asked about the personal communications. In the 21st century, there are two more opportunities to search the internet, because there is a huge amount of internet grants of different caliber, because you can post it there and someone will take it or someone will buy it. And we have such an institution of mediators. Because there are lots of people who don't know how to do anything on their own, but they're ready to promote for some money, of course, for some salary. Because I do agree, there is lots of money in the world, there is the lack of goods. So we're having the model here of 7-star school. Everybody knows what's a luxury segment, 5-star hotels, Hilton, Intercontinental, Marriott. So this is the worldwide networks of hotels. The same luxury segments, there are 5-star yacht clubs or restaurants, Michelin, but nobody decided how to create 5-star or 7-star schools for them to have the proper content and the exterior too. So when we've got such a project, it's connected not only with one school. This school has, besides the offline, you can study there, it has a research think tank. This is a kind of a center where they begin to develop all of the studies, technologies for the whole world. There will be several hundreds of millions of subscribers who will try to take technologies. Is it created already? Yes. You can see the flag there. Where does it act? Do you see the flag? It's Qatar. Yes, it's Qatar. So they project such a school there, and there will be several schools like that over there. As for your questions, let's come back to your question first. When you show anyone such an object and you say you will be the first one and monopoly at market, they say yes, it's interesting, but does it pay off? Yes, for 5 to 7 years and to 50 to 7% of after exploitation. Yes, it's interesting. But if it's a sheikh already, he says yes, it's interesting for prestige for me. It is prestigious, money and paying off, and it's very modern and new. So whatever it is, the clothes, the furniture, the new water or some technology, if you present it, it can instantly pay attention to if it's worth it and if it has the main indicators. But nobody would say, give me the money first. No, I understand that, but you created methodologies. You said that you created the first business school in the USSR and then you closed it, right? Well, I'd like to say, look, you asked the question, what we should teach. Yes, you said that 30 years ago I organized the first business school in the USSR, and during several years, for 5 to 6 years, we had about 3,000 graduates. I've met 2 of them here at least, and they said to me, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Yes, I remember you," and they are high officials now. Around half of those graduates are sometimes rich here or abroad, but they're feeling nice and very nice now. But I always wanted to know what happened with the half, 1.5 thousand people who didn't achieve that, and nothing worked. They didn't achieve anything, so it turned out that we should try to look at the background, and they were considered that the business is working according to the principle sell and run away. Well, it can be done only once. I agree that it's not enough to give the business basics, the profits, and this should take in the curriculum 20% of the time. The rest 30%, there should be morale, art, there should be communication taught, something which gives you the notion of being a human. Besides your skills, you can bake something or anything else. But later on, you develop the methodologies of the studies and you sell them abroad. How do we find partners abroad? Would you please? Very easy. We created an internet platform, and today we're having more than 150 people who would like to use our case lessons. But if there is a cooperative of some small agricultural cooperative in some small village, they won't create a platform to sell apples to Poland. They can subscribe, they can be our clients, and that's it. But they need to know how to do that. They need to go to some business school. Well, as for the money, everybody's interested in money. I'll tell you the today's case. What should we teach? 20% is the basics, 30% is the human things, because it's very important in the business, and 50% more, you know what? Lots of business schools in the world are suffering because they teach old, obsolete economy. How to create clothes, build buildings, but what about the new economy? Cryptocurrencies, drones, logistics, some of the design thinkings and social networks and new types of energy. This is approximately 20 points which are totally new niches today. Today I invented the new business here at this forum. What's that? I was going here, it was raining, there were traffic jams, and I was coming and saw a skyscraper, a Gulliver skyscraper. I saw there are the guys who tried to wash windows up there. It's very hard work. So, and you could see the drones over there. I asked the guys, can I use the drone to wash the windows? To save the part of the human labor, to automatize it, to make it quick and not that dangerous. Well, he thought a bit and said yes. And said, what's needed for that? Well, this and this. Well, I won't tell you, but we decided to think about that. So about a couple of hours ago, we invented the new business. Drones, alpinism, logistics, rain, everything got together. And today they decided, so he called his boss, they are thinking together whether they can create a drone governing it from the earth for it to wash the windows, which are not accessible in the usual regimen. So it's new economy. This is the blue ocean in comparison with the red ocean, which people are tired of. This is the new unthinkable opportunities to invent something new. Can you imagine how many clients they will have for such a service? Look, Mr. Boaz, the question is for you. Do you consider the innovations are coming just spontaneously, like it happened today with Vladimir, with drones and washing the skyscrapers? So can you program the innovations? If the company is thinking only about spontaneous or accidental ideas, the business will be developing for a very long time. Can we find some of the ideas how we can teach the people for new innovations to emerge?
Well, there were so many questions asked you in one time that I find it difficult to even answer.
Может быть, чуть-чуть громче микрофон. Можно сделать? Чуть-чуть ближе, да.
Can you hear me now?
Нет.
What about now? Okay, great. So I don't believe you can channel innovation to particular directions. I don't believe that somebody who's smarter than you can tell you now you go and you do innovation in this particular field and you obey and you do exactly that. You need to provide the environment that will motivate people to do it on their own. You asked a question before on money, and while money is important, from our experience, it's not the issue at all. The number one issue is the talent, the people. How do you create a pool of talent at home, and how you keep it here? I understand that there are some cases of Ukrainians that leave the country, so you have a challenge to keep them here and grow the economy here. And once you have the talent and around them you build the ecosystem that is needed for startups, which includes people that do the patent law and the marketing people and the promotion and the merchandising and the sales and the human resources and all the envelope of services that you need, then the money will flow. We have in Israel at any given moment more than 6,000 startups. In absolute terms, it's second only to the Silicon Valley. In relative terms, it's by far the largest in the world. We didn't have the money. And even today, most of the money comes from overseas. Once you have the people, the talent, then the money comes and flows in. Now, you ask, what can we offer them and how can we teach them? We heard before from Nicolas and from Vladimir some visions for the future. I can tell you of things that we do today. Every year, the Technion produces from within our own campus between 12 to 15 new companies every year. And we are able to raise more than $100 million in investment only in our own technologies. Mm-hmm. Most of the money comes from overseas. Well, how do we do it? Here are a few examples of how we do it. We have a business plan competition that we started in 2008. Originally, it was offered only to our own students, but it became so successful that we opened it up to all the students in Israel. From all the colleges and universities, they can come and compete. And it takes about 8 months. We filter them along the way. We offer them all kinds of courses and workshops, etc. At the end of the competition, we have a panel of judges from the industry. There isn't even one professor on the panel. It's only industry people that select the best teams. And then these teams get some monetary award, like $25,000 to $50,000 per team. So from 2008 to today, we have launched more than 60 companies, all of them led by undergraduate students. This competition is only for undergraduate students. So 60 companies came out of this competition. More than 10 of them were sold for an 8-figure number. That is more than $10 million. The person who came as number 2 in the 2012 competition, so this was 5 years ago, is now leading a company in the Silicon Valley. It's called Gasto. It's a payroll services. The company has a value of more than $1 billion. We have many such success stories. I started earlier to tell you a little bit about NASDAQ. More than 2/3 of the Israeli companies that are now traded on NASDAQ were either founded by or led by a Technion graduate.
Но смотрите, как вы их учите? Вот стартап вообще...
But how do you teach them? A startup, if we look at Wikipedia, is the company with the short operational activity. That's what's written in the notion of Wikipedia. How we should create the situation for this company to work, to be successful, to earn money. Which part of the startups can be vanishing later on? And how many are developing further on?
We believe that every student in any field, it could be in mathematics, it could be engineering, it could even be humanities, every student can be part of a startup. the student has to study whatever he or she chooses to study and do it well. And then what we offer is a layer on top of it. And this layer involves some systematic studying of courses that are for credit. For example, some courses on marketing plans, on the financial aspects of the business, etc. But most of the education is actually extracurricular. The business competition, the students do it on their own. There's no credit, no academic credit behind it. We have an entrepreneur club that meets every week on the campus. It's run by the students. Every week they invite an entrepreneur. We have many serial entrepreneurs.
Смотрите, у нас
Look, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but in 2018, how it was promised by our Prime Minister, there will be the fund created, the fund of startups. What would you advise, how we can prepare and where we should prepare the people for them to use this money, for them to know what to create?
And I want to emphasize that money is not the issue. First, I congratulate you, Prime Minister, for putting this fund, because I think given the geopolitical situation in Ukraine, it's very important that the government takes the initiative to put such a fund to provide confidence to other investors to follow suit and do similar types of funding here that will be offered to entrepreneurs. But I don't think that the money is the issue. I think the main issue is to prepare the talent, keep the talent, incentivize people to think about doing it. Don't be afraid to do it. There is a culture of risk-taking. If you're not raised with this psyche in your head, that you can take a risk and you can fail and you can come up and do it again and fail again and do it 3 times and fail. And the society around you, your family, your friends, they look at you as a hero. In Israel, if you fail, people look at you as a hero.
Илья, вот смотрите, вы преподавали в Стэнфорде.
Ilja, you were teaching in Stanford, so really there are students there who, starting there, they try to attract money. Would you maybe say some figures? Those are substantial figures, lots of money. For the latest 10 years, the students of Stanford attracted $26 billion for their innovations, and there are 16,000 students in Stanford, and Taras Shevchenko University has 30,000 of students. Could you explain how? What can Ukrainian universities to do who try to bring up entrepreneurs? How should we change our business education to be at least close to that? I'll come back to the question about the environment. I do agree with the opinion that the good sailor can be brought up by the calm weather, but on the other hand, when we are trying to grow potatoes, we have to dig the earth, because the humanity could be hungry without that. This is the dry statistics. So if we want to have the very thankful soil, when everything is working, on interconnections are working, the state, the government is working with the universities, with the private capital, all of that together, and all of that creates synergy, we'll have the proper figures. But what can we do? Can you give an exact examples? Well, approximately 100 points I could list, well, at least first 3 of them. Well, I could begin today till Tuesday, the regulations of the universities. If we go to the highest level, the motivation of the Stanford would be economic. They need to lure the student to take the $250,000 for him to pay for his tuition. Otherwise, the university won't get the salary. So the motivation is economic. In our territory, for instance Lithuania, and I do suspect it's the same as in Ukraine, when the motivation of the university is academic, the quantity of the publications in the library. So the universities don't care whether the students will earn money or not, whether they will attract investments or not. Then the environment is not that good for the economic effect. It could be nice for academic achievements, I suspect it is like that, but then you shouldn't surprise that there are no live money for the investments. After that, nothing is important, right? I wouldn't take too much time with that. Okay, I'll ask again about Stanford then. As far as I know, the whole situation in Stanford is that you select the students from different countries, different parts of the world, and even if there is the lack from some part of the world, they try to think which discounts can exist for them to arrive. For the education of the business school to be a business hub, for them to have future partners working, who will be working together in the future. Not, well, I'm trying to find connections all over the world, but I had some of the co-workers, co-students, John from somewhere. Is it true? And should really the business school be such a hub? I consider that, first of all, of course, we can romanticize the role of the entrepreneur in the society, social mission, and so on. But first of all, the Americans are very strong pragmatics. When they understood that informational technologies is the future, they opened lots of courses for the people who know how to think and who know how to work, to invite them to work in America, because those people create ecosystem. First of all, everything, since this product, which is for outstanding cities. So if you are worth anything, the Americans will give you visa. Please come and create our future here. First of all, we're having a real dollar-motivated pragmatism, and secondly, of course, we are not living in the 20th century, so social missions are important and needed, so the equality and the gender equality, those are secondary missions, so still, the first thing is economy to rule. But to win the grant, as I used to know, you need to find the proper equality, gender equality. So, for instance, it's much more desirable for a woman to be the leader of the project for the equality. There are lots of things we have to take into consideration. Mr. Boaz, you wanted to add something or to have some controversies?
I want to add something about Stanford because I don't want the audience to get out of here with the wrong impression about Stanford. So Stanford is not just about money, okay? First and foremost, it's a leading science and technology university. It has, since the year 2005, Nobel laureates, more than any other university on the face of the earth. So it's not just money. And to your question, I think it's very, very important to have a mix of people from different cultures, from different countries in a business school, not necessarily because they create these links and contacts that will help them in the future. That's not really the most important element. Most important is expose each one of them to different people. I think heterogeneity is one of the key ingredients in innovation and entrepreneurship. If everybody looks the same, if everybody talks the same, if everybody sings the same song and dances the same dance, then at the end of the day you will continue to get what you've been getting before.
Тогда нет развития, да.
There won't be any development, right?
Almagul. В каком виде?
So, Almagul, in what type of the business are the women most successful? And is there a difference between the business led by men and women? I don't think that such limitations exist today. But the tendencies. Well, no, there are no tendencies, because today the women are both in the cybersecurity and IT technologies, and they are leading the business institutes. Recently, at one of our bachelor programs of Entrepreneurship, our famous businessman had a task. He wanted to choose guys, but he was impressed when there was the contest, all of the stages, and the women did very well. And I asked him, why are you against that? Why don't you want to support the women? He said, but tomorrow they can marry, and I want to lead those girls. If I invest into them, I will give lots to my graduates. I will teach them in Stanford and anywhere else. But as a result, communicating with them, he chose all of them, all of the girls. He will give them the chance, so they won. I do consider there are no restrictions now. And if there is certain difference, and I think the audience will agree with me, that in the company which has been led by a man, of course there is a ratio, but the company which is led by a woman, this is the creativity and a very high level of emotional intellect, it's aesthetics and inspiration, of course. No, it seems to me you can say the same about men too, about still, but there are no limitations, right? So there is such a difference. It depends on the character, of course. Would you please tell, do we need today to take into consideration, it's interesting for me, in the business education, that Kazakhstan, Ukraine and post-Soviet countries, all this mentality is already too obsolete, and we never, the young people don't remember how the Soviet Union looked like. So, teaching the entrepreneurship, what do you think? I mean that this trace of the Soviet past, that we don't know something, we don't know how to have negotiations, we are not that entrepreneurs. Maybe there are some of the business schools in the world which we could take as an example. What are the most successful, which suit us? Maybe the methodologies and tendencies. Well, yes, in fact the experience is needed first of all, and we built our school. We are 29 years old, and of course we started the experience of Singapore, Haas Business School in the US, we started Technion, and of course today any model could be constructed, but still we understand that there are certain peculiarities of the region, of the mentality, of the thinking, and so on and so forth. So of course we were trying to find our way, so we have it. As for the question of the post-Soviet mentality, well, look, every year more than 500 people are MBA or DBA graduates, people who are 45 plus. It tells a lot. Because today a person of Soviet style of thinking, of some different style of thinking, he is ready today to change, to get education, to get networking, to communicate. It's very important for him to have emotions and expectations from the people of the same age. Though they are very successful, they are having small or bigger business, still they are ready to educate themselves. So I think that today the business schools are flourishing, and there are more and more of them in each region. But you didn't name any country in particular. There should be a whole mix. Of course there should be the mixture, yes. Combining, because we can't move in one direction. We can't take only one example. Nicolas, I've heard that it turns out that in the future not IT guys would be needed, but, and you are the founder of the IT school, you're working in this sphere, but mathematicians. Because the world has so much information, some big bulks of information, that we need mathematicians to be prepared for them to create systems where everything should be stored, all of this information. What do you say about the future of the IT guys?
In IT, I would say you have two parts. One part which is kind of translating an idea to code. This part can be computers, can be done by computers. After, it depends on what you call IT guy. Okay, if you call IT guy just translator, of course we won't need it, and I think it's not so far. Maybe in 20 years, it's fine. We believe that IT it's as much to do with art than with science. Okay, and in this case, we would say that IT would be what we call a IT guy. We would be someone who is able to make a group of people able to co-innovate. Okay, because it's information technology. It's not computer technology. So it's what we need. We need people who are able to help a group of people to make co-creativity, so to share information, so they can create innovation. This kind of skill, it doesn't need any kind. It will be forever. So we need this. Okay, this is humanity activity. It's like art. It's like interaction and empathy. Okay, that's what mainly we believe that our students are learning. They are not learning. For example, in 42 there is no class at all on any language. We think language is a second problem, and they will learn it by themselves. What they need to learn is to interact each other, so a group of people can be innovative. We try to mix them with a lot of other fields. So we have partners with more than 40 schools in France, but all over the world, and we have students working with cook students, with students working from fashion school or whatever, because it's an IT guy, it's someone who is not working for IT, it was work for create new stuff altogether. So I think that's it forever. After, do we need math people? Of course we need people to use math, okay? And we need people to interact with mathematicians. For example, in France we have a big issue about data scientists. I don't think it does exist a data scientist. I don't think it's someone. I think what we call a problem of data scientists, it's a group problem. So we need to have a good mathematician working with a good computer guys, with a good anthropologist, a good linguist, and all together we'll create something new. So what the real skill, what we need at the end, it's people who are passionate in one field and able to interact with other people so they can have a collective creativity.
You know, the question I'd like to ask to all of the participants of our discussion, we're speaking about the business, of course, we can speak a lot about that, but a very important question. If you want to achieve anything, you need to work a lot. You work hard. So really, sometimes people don't have enough time to have some fun outside, to devote his time to the family, to his friend. How can we achieve success in the business and still to have enough time to be happy, to live and to enjoy life? I'd like for you to answer in this question, maybe to think how it happened in your story. Ilya. Okay, Nicolas first.
I don't think to succeed you need to work hard. I think to succeed you need to be happy and to be passionate of what you do. I met a lot of people who succeed, and I have a luck to be on this. Most of those people didn't do it for money, like we told before. They just did it because they really enjoyed to do each thing. And each day when they get to their company, when they create their own company or whatever, they just have pleasure on it. So I think the question you put between work and family and stuff is not irrelevant.
То есть в субботу-воскресенье вы не работаете?
So you don't work on the weekends?
No, I work on the weekend, but I don't work. I just, each time I'm going to do something, I am full of pleasure to do it. I am pleased to be here, and I am pleased to be each day speaking with young people, creating new stuff, and it gets me a lot of pleasure. And I really do think, first, we can't, as humans, do something well if you don't get pleasure when you do it.
Безусловно. Владимир?
Vladimir? I'm not working at all. I transformed all of my life into a hobby. This is a totally different attitude and self-estimation, hobby, and my personal aims and goals. They give me strength, so you're not working, but still, you've developed your methodology. You do that and it is the work. Yes, well, I'm a theoretician, so I consider that a happy person is the person who knows how to build priorities. What's important, what's not. The people who are making more important things, they are happier in that. And also I'd like to mention about the education of happiness. This is the marketing question. The parents, when they give a child to school and you ask, what do you want of this school? The majority of you parents, what do you say? What's your requirement of the school? From you, from the parents. I want my child to be happy. Successful and happy, right? Still, they don't teach neither happiness nor success in school. They teach mathematics, for instance. So we had some courses of happiness, of enrichment, of charisma. What the parents are living with when they try to bring up their children, it transformed the whole process of education. Then the internal motivation, both of the child and the parent, to study, because you will be happy and rich and successful. This motivation is much stronger than when you are told, please rant about the profits, the expenses, the percentage, the stock exchange, and so on. That is why we should take into consideration. But what do you teach? We choose to find priorities. we recommend to each adult one to have a secret file in your computer for anyone not to see it, and to write down what you managed to do, what you achieved to do. You were lucky, your child was born, there was a nice weather, 300, 400 of those small quants of happiness. And you have to look at these lines once a week, and this life consists of this. Your life consists not of breath-ins and breath-outs, but of those happy moments. Then that's when your life becomes happy and perfect, because this how you do. And at the charisma lessons, just the same. You say that you can't teach charisma. Well, maybe it depends. It depends, because if you have 200 of people or children at the stage, if they don't have musical ear, they can get it later on. As the same as for charisma. For instance, you can show the girl how to do the makeup and so on, to show the power of their character. So today, as a business school, we're speaking about the adults. As for the studies, so the left or circle of your brain is working, you will become a rich person, and that's it. This hemisphere of the brain depends on the right one too. So charisma, in the case of charisma, we want the people to show their character and will. The person who has his will, he is twice as charismatic as the people who don't know how to do that. So you shouldn't be afraid not to have any psychological obstacles, right? Yes, we've had lots of cases when, well, in this case I'm speaking about the school age. When a child is coming to the stage, he doesn't know, he's neither a musician, he doesn't know how to sing, he's afraid of the stage. So please go and beat the drum. He's coming for 20 times at the stage, and for the 25th time he's not afraid of the audience. This is charisma already, because then he's dealing totally differently both in life. This is the pattern which you can't forget. So he remembers the lessons. Well, of course those are not lessons. This is the way of a child. This pattern, his trajectory towards happiness and towards riches. Almagul, what do you think? Especially for the woman, when you have to deal with your house and to have enough time for the business. Yes, besides the win-win-win slogan, I like another one, and our president of our university follows it. Govern yourself, govern the business, and govern your time, because it's very important to be organic in everything. If a person gets any of the fun only from his work, it's not right. So every person, especially a woman, but a man too, they must have hobbies, they must have priorities and friends. They have values besides the work. So you need not only to work, but to have time for everything. And again, we're getting inspirations from the family, from our children, we're getting inspiration from our husbands, and I'm getting inspirations from my parents, because if we don't have it, everything is just useless. Mr. Boaz, how can we become happy, achieving success?
I'll give you an example. When you cross the Charles River going from Boston to MIT, there is a famous joke about the university. When you cross this bridge, on the middle of the bridge you see a little sign, and it says, "You are halfway to hell." So I don't believe in shortcuts. I don't believe in becoming successful by being lazy or not investing more than 100% of what you can do in order to succeed. I believe in motivating people that will go after their own vision full force. And we don't try to teach people how to be happy. Each one is an adult. He or she can decide on their balance of life. We trust them. And the most important element for me is keep them motivated, because if they are motivated, they will find the happiness from within.
Илья, как же быть счастливым на пути?
Ilja, so how can we be happy on the way to success? Oh, I will bisect your questions into the personal and professional. So I think that happiness is very individual. How can we find time for everyone? This is very pragmatic. I will name you the tool. We can use efficiently your time because instinctively you just want to work more. To sit in the office 24 hours a day, this is an American model of workaholics, but this leverage is very limited. You're having only 24 hours and that's it, nothing more. But still, the efficiency increase is just endless. So it's from life experience. For 15 minutes of the meeting, you can discuss and find something which can take 5 hours or half a year. So this factor is not only 15 to 20 to 50%, but it's the factor of 1,000%. Modern technologies can increase the efficiency of labor, though it could seem to be science fiction 10 years ago. I always say the example about the first Chinese artificial intelligence of the journalist who wrote the sports review for 0.2 seconds, though the human sportsman is writing 30 minutes, and the readers couldn't say who wrote, the computer or the human being, and they didn't see the difference, 0.2 seconds and 30 minutes. So modern technologies, they allow to increase the result, the efficiency. So the art of time management has lots in its notion, and it's the only resource which can't be renewable. And you can't you can use somebody's money, but you can't use somebody's time. Because you can achieve for 0.2 seconds, achieve whatever you want. I am thankful, dear participants of the discussions, for such conversation. I think there will be some questions from the audience, please. I could see here the hand. Yes, please. First of all, I thank everyone for such an interesting conversation. As we're speaking about business education and business and MBA, people are coming formatted by the school system. In this context, what we were speaking about, how do we need to change the system of evaluation or assessment? Because when we're having a startup, we evaluate the problem and how it solves this problem, how efficient the solution is. But when we assess at school or in the university, still we're having this line system of marks. Can we construct some frame which can interconnect the school, the university and professional growth, a kind of portfolio like in School 42 and Unit Factory, because you have this system of levels you have to overcome. Can you think of some universal model which can be implemented into the school system for it to give the better prepared for business and for life people? Or maybe we should try to have some business lessons at school, right? Who could answer? Vladimir? Well, first of all, they exist in the majority of schools, but they're boring. We are trying to practice that children are in the economic environment. The school have their own currency, the bank, the tax inspection default. So for the 12 years, our children, they know how to count cross rates of the currencies better than I do. So the entrepreneurs have to be in this environment, and then he grows as a ready product in 12 years. The same happens in the university. If the person is submerged in this system, you have to come into this environment. Yes, this is the private school, so you can correct it. Oh, it happens anywhere. This is the Ministry of Education has to improve it, and then implementation. Well, yes, but you should have the proper aim. Even in the conditions of the state, it's allowed already certain freedoms. Every teacher can teach in his or her own way. The schools can choose something, the models, and the Parents' Council can claim, why not? I will tell you as a secret. So I just send the parents to the administration of the school and I say, please claim if there is an acting model, you need to implement it. If it's worth some money, it's not that expensive. I would like to tell you about the experience of Kazakhstan. Today we have social responsibility of business schools and entrepreneurship universities, which there are more than 50 of them in Kazakhstan. Now they decided to influence the schools. The famous businessmen and entrepreneurs, they are having lots of leadership lessons and design thinking and critical thinking. So, in fact, we took the social responsibility to write down the program, the curriculum, and the course of entrepreneurship. So, knowing this experiment, we'll try to position it in the president's schools. Yes, we should begin with the schools, otherwise it will be too late. So today the generation takes everything very quickly. And sometimes they are already born as entrepreneurs. You don't need to teach them because they have these skills already. Well, maybe you mean the schools in Almaty, right? No, the schools in the regions. We went to the regions. And those president schools are in any region. That is why, again, the association of the entrepreneurship, they include regional universities and they care about entrepreneurships beginning with the school years for their first courses to have some of the basics even not to be given at all, because this it's not enough. So we say some decisions have to be adopted on the state level and there should be political will. Hello, my name is Justina. I'm the graduate from the e-business school, Spain, and I have such a question. As we raised very relevant topics and you were speaking that the teamwork is very important, really. When I studied, I know that the teamwork as a project work, startup work or the contest work, it takes half or maybe even more of time of your studies. Still, simultaneously, we've got lots of discussions about online education. The dignity of online education is online MBA and other types. So, on the other hand, teamwork is important, and it's possible how Nicolas told, peer-to-peer, when we are sitting together and working together. But while we're doing that, we're losing time. Because we could gain real experience in real companies, and when you have an opportunity to gain online education, you are having online or already the experience in labor. So I'd like you to comment on the online education topic, whether it's the future, whether it replaces the university, maybe some of the courses would be taught online, and whether it suits everywhere. Yes, thanks. Yes, Mr. Boaz.
Many universities now experiment with MOOCs. MOOCs are massive online open courses. And I think MIT is the leader with more than 1,500 MOOC courses already on the internet. In my opinion, it's not going to replace the university. It's definitely not going to replace the experience of working in teams, which is very important in business education. It must continue. But there will be a growing role for online education, which means a lot of the materials that historically we were delivering in frontal lectures can now be delivered in a more efficient way by letting the students read and listen to the material before the class starts. So the concept of many of these MBA courses now is the flipped classroom, where instead of learning the basic materials in the classroom, the students learn it in their own free time at home as homework. And when they come to the classroom, they come for a discussion. It actually goes back to the philosophical way in which the ancient Greek were teaching during Socrates' time. Most of the experience in the classroom was all about discussion. So I think in the future we'll see different mixes of online content, some classroom content, teamwork. It's all going to be a part of the future education. It's not going to be 100% online.
Пане Володимире, так розумію, що
Mr. Vladimir, it seems to me you want to add, yes, you know, the most fashionable thing in business education today is the system of sandwich. Do you know what sandwich is? This is the bun which has the tomato, the cutlet, the cucumber and some cabbage. So, the system is working is not either or, but everything together. It's a vertical one. There is an online learning, offline learning, the practice in real businesses, and self-organization, self-education at home. In different proportions, it should exist. All of that should exist. So everything should be done either simultaneously and parallel. And you add the teamwork and in the evenings online, and in a week or in a month some practice in the real business, and self-education, of course. Then the time is being pressed. Ilja said that the main thing, and he was right, that we should press this time to make it quicker, because the technologies we are discussing, they allow to make everything quicker. They came from the business. In the business, the aim is to create more products for a shorter period of time or for smaller resources. It doesn't help in educations. MBA, 1.5 years, 2 years. Why? 1 month you worked, 1 month you worked, 1 month you studied again. Because the things which you could study for several months, you can take it for several days. So we need to transform these MBAs into totally different technological processes. But Vladimir, what about the brains? How can we do that? The brains are working okay if they are motivated enough. But we're having 24 hours a day only, right? Oh, the capacity of the human brain is unlimited, and the motivation can allow us to do much more if it's interesting for you, if it's practical for you, and if it's close. Your aim is close when you can earn much more money. Nothing can keep you from this knowledge to be transformed into the monetizing then. Okay, and then you can earn much more money. Can I add, please? Yes, I'd like to add, when you asked about the cooperation with business partners, today we're having the online courses which we hold together with our partners who are somewhere far from us in Silicon Valley or in Singapore and so on and so forth. So the best experience is very important for us. It's not compulsory to wait for it tomorrow that someone will come to us and that's it. It's too expensive, it's not efficient. Online courses is what a cool business school is doing. So it's really pleasant that those business schools attract our teachers as well as they have some of the online lectures. Yeah, but does it suit all of the spheres, right? Yes, sure. So partly or not, Vladimir? 100% of online tuition, of course, it's very complicated. It's not the right thing to do. We need communication, we need experience, and you have to be multilateral and you need to understand what to search for. It's easy to say that you can find anything in Google. You click the Google and you can find 100,000 pages, so what should we do with that? You need to give a proper understanding, a bit of online, a bit of offline, and a tutor of the mentor with your colleagues, and some of the self-education and information from anywhere which gives you the whole complex and systematic and quick, narrow understanding of what you need, and then you just perceive all of that automatically. Have you got any questions left, dear guests of the discussion? Then I think it's time to wrap it up with our conversation. Does any of you want, dear speakers, to add anything? Maybe anything more to say? Ilja, please. Well, because of the last question, I think that one of the biggest misunderstandings all over the life, not only in the business, that people are communicating rationally with each other. This is as for the online education. In real life, the emotions, the emotional ideas, all the wishes and respect and all of the non-rational factors, they give the 90% of the result. You can have any product with any price, but the customer can think that you are speaking not in a nice way, and it doesn't matter at all. So online education, in the best case, it will give you information, but in no way it doesn't give you the real life skills, how to communicate with people for them to understand you, for your information to be comprehensible, because the understanding, for people to understand you, for you to be understood. It's the art too, and it can't be taken from any textbook. This is the real communication you need to observe. You need to look at the people's eyes. It can be done only in the group and only in practice. I'm from Lithuania, and the basketball is a very popular game. As one of the coaches said, you can read 1 million books of basketball, but up till the time when you didn't try basketball in real life, you don't know how to play basketball. So this human factor of communications and all the rest, it's so underrated, it's so forgotten, and everything is closed by information, the textbook, the points, the regulations, that we have to flip the model and to say, people, we are human beings, we want to be rational, but in fact it's not like that. So let's try to communicate and to interact in the companies, in the teams, and individually. It's really important. Ilya, but if, for instance, the boss, the head of the department, does he have to knock the table, or he should to be comprehensible, to be respected and loved? Well, if I rephrase the phrase into motivation, the boss is not a person who knows how to do, but who can gain the maximum of energy from his employees. This is the main task of the boss. The motivators in different societies, they act in a different way. Why I like the practical America? Because the dollar is a universal motivator for them. If you want the office employee to sit longer in the office, you have to pay twice more. Yes, we'd like to have this model too. Yes, this is the society of consumerism. For us Europeans, it's not that humane, right? Because how can you say the dollar makes everything? But still, when you create a very complicated links and you need to have 10,000 people together for them to create the bowing like fiddles in the orchestra without those excuses that my children are crying at home and I want something creative, the motivation in the US is one, and the motivation over there is totally different. In Europe, sometimes we speak about family values and the different caliber interests. So the task of the head is to understand the context and the concrete collective, which values are the motivators in this collective, and to construct the model which could give the maximum energy, and to get it from this model. There shouldn't be one recipe, of course. Well, of course, if the boss is attentive, people need to be more attentive too. Vladimir. Yes, please, sure. Our suffering country, for this business education to be rather high ranked, there are only 3 points for that. First of all, we need to ask for some of the leading top 100 universities of the world to send subsidiaries here, to send some of the parts of the university here, because we won't be able to do that on our own. When we have from 5 to 7 subsidiaries here, I'm not speaking about Stanford and Massachusetts, there will be such a competition which will allow our business education to be ahead of us very quickly. Secondly, as we are specialists on some important things, we need those universities to create. Why, if we are proud with IT guys, where is our information university? If we have the hub, we are Ukraine, we've got lots of roads and airports, where's the logistics university then? It should be compulsory, it should be mandatory, but we've got the transport university, right? Oh, it's a transport one, they don't have logistics there, they don't even have such a specialty there. We don't need just to create it, we need to say that our information technology can't be even close to any other in the world. It will be the best in the world. And the third point, our country has to state about its ambitions, because the ambitions is the motivator which allows our people to study here and not to go abroad. So far we can create our own ambitions to move forward. Dear friends, thank you so much that you've been here with us. I will remind you who were our speakers, because I would like to express my gratitude. So we had Almagul Kanagatova here, first Vice Rector of Almaty Management University. Thank you, Almagul. Thank you so much. Boaz Golany, Vice President for External Relations of Israeli University Technion. Thank you so much, Mr. Boaz. Nicolas Sadirac, co-founder and executive director of the French School 42, where there are no teachers. Vladimir Spivakovsky, the founder of the first in the USSR business school, president of the corporation Grand. If you want to be happy and rich, you still need to go to the school, right? and Ilja Laurs, the chairman of the venture capital fund Nextury Ventures, the founder of one of the biggest internet application shops, GetJar, Lithuania. Thank you, Ilja. Thank you, dear friends.
For this meeting, thank you very much for your advices, for your experience. Thank you very much. Спасибо вам большое.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone, and have success and luck. Thank you. Let's thank to Olga too.